for the Susan Taylor Podcast, where we discuss the yoga of mind, medicine, and healing. Author of Feeling Good Matters, Sexual Radiance, and the Vital Energy Program, Dr. Taylor imparts authentic knowledge and practical tools that inspire, educate, and empower us to be a healing force for positive change. So join us and take your life and our planet to the next level.
Hello and welcome to Podcast 61, Can Exercise Improve Your Brain's Resilience? In today's episode, I'd like to discuss how exercise protects the brain, helps with anxiety, and improves memory. You know, your brain is capable of rejuvenating and regenerating itself throughout your life, and it was once believed that once neurons die, there's nothing you can do about it. Hence, it was believed that there'd be a deterioration in progressive memory loss, or that decline that occurs, was considered to be an inevitable part of our aging process. But we know that it's not true now, and especially if you exercise. Physical activity or exercise is a powerful resilience factor because it provides nourishing and protective factors for your brain that I'll talk about today, as well as for the rest of your body and your mind. Remember, mind comes before brain. Researchers say that one new case of dementia is detected every 4 seconds globally. That was pretty astonishing when I heard that statistic. And they estimate that by the year 2050, more than 115 million people will have dementia worldwide. Well, can exercise help with making the brain more resilient? I would say absolutely. Let me give you some highlights that exercise has to offer, and then we'll go on to how that happens. Exercise helps memory and thinking through both direct and indirect means. It actually affects the brain on multiple fronts by increasing our heart rate, which pumps more oxygen to the brain, but it also aids the bodily release of hormones that affect insulin, inflammatory responses, as well as the release of growth hormones, the chemicals in the brain that affect the health of brain cells, as well as the growth of new blood vessels in the brain. And even the abundance and survival of new brain cells exercise can help with. In an indirect way, exercise improves mood and sleep. It reduces our stress and anxiety. And problems in these areas frequently cause or contribute to cognitive impairment, which we're seeing so much of. Many studies have suggested that parts of the brain that control thinking and memory, namely the prefrontal cortex and the medial temporal cortex, have greater volume in people who exercise versus people who don't. There have been some findings that show when we engage in a systematic program of regular exercise of moderate intensity over 6 months to a year, there's an association with an increase in the volume of selected brain regions, as I mentioned, the prefrontal cortex and the medial temporal cortex. And within that medial temporal cortex, we're talking about the memory, the hippocampus, which is in charge of our memory. So why is it transformative for our brain to exercise? What is it about it? I have a couple of things that I outlined to discuss today with you, and we'll go over that. And then I'll stay tuned for any questions or feedback that we have, because this podcast is a result of some of the feedback I got from some of you. And someone specifically said, hey, what about exercise for a highly resilient brain? Aren't you going to include that? So thank you for that. And thank you out there to the community who's contributing and giving me your suggestion. So let's move to why is the brain, what's so transformative about exercise that helps the brain? And one is it has an immediate effect on your brain. A single workout that you do will immediately increase levels of neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, and noradrenaline. And that's going to increase your mood right after the workout, and in some cases last for a few hours after. The more you do it, it's almost like the more you're putting in your exercise bank account, for neurotransmitters. A single workout can actually improve your ability to shift and focus your attention. You hear me all the time speaking about focusing your awareness, meditation, focusing your awareness, meditation. But exercise can also help in a different way. We're still more outward, but we can bring that inward. So it does help with focusing attention. And that focus improvement will last, again, for a couple of hours. So can you imagine if proper breathing was combined. I mean, these are just studies with exercise. But what we do in our resilience training is that we talk about proper breathing. If you're breathing correctly with a focused awareness of what you're doing and exercising, I think it's going to be compounded. The results are just going to be over the top. Because we do know in engaging in pranayama practices, that's where when I teach people how to really work with their energy fields through their breath, they have lasting effects to continue for over 3 hours. And it's amazing, and it works. I know in my own practice that helps. The longer you participate in exercise with sustained focus on the breath, the more lasting the results are going to be. And again, it's within reason, meaning not overdoing the exercise. And I'll get to that at the end. Why long lasting? Because repeated practices change the brain's anatomy, physiology, and function. And the second point I'd like to bring up, and it's one of the most common findings in neuroscience studies, is looking at these effects of long-term exercise. And I had mentioned it's improved attention, which is, related to the prefrontal cortex. So we get a better development of the prefrontal cortex, which again gives us the better focus and attention. But specifically, also studies have shown the volume of the hippocampus. Remember, I mentioned the memory place where we increase our memory will increase as well. And finally, you not only get the immediate effects of mood, as I mentioned, but with exercise, but focus. That's going to last a long time. But let me point out here that you get long-lasting increases in those good mood neurotransmitters with undeniable effects on your mood, with anxiety reduction is the key among them. And I want to just talk about that for a minute. It was a study done by Princeton University where researchers revealed that exercising actually creates new excitable neurons along with new neurons designed to release GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid, which is a neurotransmitter that inhibits excessive neuronal firing, which means it helps us induce a natural state of being calm. Remember, remain calm. Not only just consciously aware, living in the moment, but really calm down. And that helps. So commonly prescribed anti-anxiety drugs like Ativan, Xanax, Valium, they actually exert a calming effect also in the same manner by boosting the action of GABA. But the mood-boosting benefits of exercise occur both immediately after a workout and continually on in long-term usage without the side effects of taking any of these drugs, anti-anxiety drugs. Also, in addition to the creation of new neurons, including the ones that release the calming neurotransmitter GABA, exercise boosts levels of a potent brain chemical. And again, I mentioned them already, serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, which may help buffer some of the effects of stress. I wanted to bring that in here to say, we have those stress hormones that are released. Exercise can buffer that. It's also one of the most effective prevention and treatment strategies for depression. And anyone who's been depressed can attest to it. If you can get yourself outside exercising, you feel better. A third point I'd like to talk about is, in addition, exercise does have protective effects on the brain. During exercise, nerve cells release proteins known as neurotropic factors, and one in particular called the brain-derived neurotropic factor, BDNF, triggers numerous other chemicals that actually promote neuronal health and directly benefit cognitive function, including learning. So BDNF not only preserves existing brain cells, but it also activates brain stem cells to convert into new neurons, and that effectively makes your brain grow larger. And one last transformation that takes place that I want to bring in today as a point is the reduction of plaque formation. By altering the way damaging proteins reside inside our brain, exercise may help slow the development of Alzheimer's disease. So here you can think about the brain like a muscle. The more you're working out, the bigger and stronger your hippocampus and prefrontal cortex will get. And why is this important? Because it's currently believed that the prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus are the two areas that are most susceptible to neurodegenerative diseases and normal cognitive decline in aging. So with increased exercise over your lifetime, you're not going to cure dementia or Alzheimer's disease, but what you're going to do is you're going to create the strongest, biggest hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, so it takes longer for these declines to actually have an effect, if they're going to have an effect at all. You could think of exercise as a supercharged investment package for your brain, and it only requires self-effort. So the question comes, how much exercise is needed? Well, a general statement would be to get 3 to 4 times a week of exercise, aerobic exercise, minimum 30 minutes. But I like to add some stretching, some weight bearing, depending on the age and condition of the person. It's very important to include other things. I used to be a personal trainer when I was doing my PhD, and I used to develop exercise programs for people. And it was always about exercise based on their physical health, their condition, the age, and what they want to accomplish. But you have to keep in mind that you need to get the heart rate up according to your fitness level and age. And the good news is you don't have to go to the gym or an expensive gym or a certain club. You can actually do power walking around the block or do stairs or get yourself something in the home and watch if you wanted to watch something. I usually don't watch TV or distract myself when I'm exercising. I don't do any of that because I focus on my breath and I focus. Because the key in life is focus creates the happiness out of all of it. But exercise will really support that at the same time. So I've talked about exercise improving mood, memory, and offering protective coverage for your brain, when we enlist in it for about 3 to 4 times a week for 30 minutes. I want to leave you with one last thought before ending today, and that is bringing exercise into your life will not only give you a happier, more productive life today, which we all really want to, because we all really want to ascribe to, but it will protect your brain from incurable diseases. And in this way, it will change the trajectory of your life for the better. And that brings us to the end of this episode. And, contact us at susantaylor.org. Some of you have, and we're creating new podcasts weekly for you. And if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, I'd love to hear it. Thank you for listening. The Susan Taylor podcast does come out every week. And contact us. And always do your research. And until next time, remain calm.